Are you longing for a deeper connection? Searching everywhere for answers, but still coming up short? The answers you seek don't require you to move your feet. Close your eyes, open your ears, and take a journey into the labyrinth of your soul. Because a voice from within your heart, the innermost room of your soul, has been trying to speak to you all of your life. If you don't want to make that journey alone, tune in to Heart and Soul Radio, and let's make that journey together. Heart and Soul Radio on www.justherriott.com. You are listening to Heart and Soul Radio with your host, Jesse Herriott.
Okay, for those of you that are just tuning in, my name is Jesse Herriott, and this is Heart and Soul Radio, and it's a podcast where we live from our heart and speak from our soul. And my goal is to interview people who are doing and living and embodying just that idea. And on the line with me, I have two great friends of mine, Karen, Miss Karen Henry, Dr. Karen Henry, who is a positive psychology scholar as well as a romance writer, and her tag team partner, Mr. Taylor Powers. You both are on the line?
We are.
Right here.
Awesome. So let's jump right in because I'm excited about this particular interview. This is the first interview, and I think that I would have it no other way than to kick this off with friends. So I typically would start with Karen, but Taylor, I'm interested in your background, brother. So let's go ahead and start with you. Tell me a bit about yourself, man. Like, what got you into this partnership, and what do you and Karen do together as far as your work?
Well, let's see. I started out as I actually went to I went to school for veterinary and animal science, veterinary medicine in Massachusetts, and shortly thereafter started working in the field. I'd always had a background in writing and theater and art and just generally right brain stuff. And I worked in the field for a little while, and I loved it. I loved what I was doing, but my heart just, I guess, wasn't really in it, and sort of switched gears a couple of years back, and have been doing just doing what I do, doing art, doing theater, doing writing, doing anything and everything I can get my hands on as far as expressing myself and living more freely and less 9 to 5 with a structured day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could totally feel that, man. I'm all about unplugging from the machine, even though I kind of dabble in it. The way I look at it is I use the machine to pay me to do what I love to do, because I have the family path and the wife and the kid and all of that. But I love it when people can just unplug, man, and just really be who they are. And not to sound too hippie, but I'm totally there with you. Karen, tell me a bit about your background. I already know you, but for those that are just tuning into the podcast, tell them about yourself and about your work.
Well, I'm a mom, first and foremost, but I have a master's degree in community psychology, and I've been pursuing a PhD
Karen,
in
are you
psychology.
Still there?
Yep, can you hear me? I'm mumbling. I have a master's degree in community psychology, and I've been pursuing a PhD in psych with an emphasis on positive psychology. And I started studying authors because I'm also a romance writer in the fiction genre. So I've been studying the lives and the well-being of people who do what they want to do for a living. and people who are happiest with pursuing their creative side, which is one of the ways that Taylor and I actually met and started a dialogue about people really just loving what they do and doing what they love. And so I was teaching at the University of New York in Oneonta, New York for 5 years, and just decided this past spring that what we're going to do is write books together. We write both fiction and nonfiction books, and right now I'm doing transitions coaching, and Taylor's just getting into that with me also. We're working and writing some fiction and nonfiction stuff together, and we opened a little shop where we sell art and we celebrate young artists who needed a voice in the world, and we encourage that, and that's basically what we do.
I love that. I love that. I think that that's also one of the things that's really missing from like school education speaking. The arts. It's like the arts, they really aren't funded or promoted, and that's the first thing that education or schools take away from. You know, they pull from the music department, from the arts department whenever they have to cut a budget, as opposed to, you know, pulling from, you know, all the sports and all that, which seems to be the big money makers for schools.
True.
So let's talk a bit about. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Jess.
No, I don't want to cut you off. I was going to throw a question out there with regards to positive psych and romance writing. I want to dig into that a bit and that creative side. How do those two mesh together for you guys?
Well, for me, they meshed together in that I did what a lot of romance writers do. I was pursuing a graduate degree and reading a whole lot of heavy stuff, a whole lot of technical stuff. Working towards becoming a mental health counselor, and I was reading romance novels to sort of balance out my left brain and my right brain. I know Taylor mentioned that he's really right-brained, but he's also very balanced, and I was doing that. And then I got into writing romance fiction just about 10 years ago, and that sort of led me down a path of writing general fiction, writing young adult stuff, writing new adult stuff. But I think it's the pursuit of happiness, and one of the things that authors of the romance genre do is they write stories that in order for it to be part of that genre, in order to be part of the Romance Writers of America organization, they write stories where a satisfying ending is guaranteed in every book, and I thought that was quite charming, actually. And it's pretty upbeat when you think about it. And, you know, that could be anything from inspirational or, you know, gospel stories to dark, heavy, paranormal stuff to, you know, suspense things. So that's really when I started studying romance writers themselves, and that kind of spun off into the things that I study with positive psych, which is subjective well-being and creativity.
What does positive psych has to say about the dark side, the dark stuff, the murky stuff of life? What do they have to say about that? Because positive psych, you know, it's huge. I mean, look at the latest song that's out there. What's by Pharrell Williams? You know, Because I'm Happy. I'm sure that's like positive psych's, you know, anthem, and that song is like global. You know, but what does positive psych have to say about, because you mentioned several things that really caught my ear about from the romance genre and from, I mean, stories like, I know Anna Karenina may not fit in the romance genre, but if it did in some way, what does positive psych have to say about stuff like that?
Well, actually, a couple of the biggest researchers in positive psych just put out a book that speaks directly to this. So I think that that's one of those topics in positive psych that people are now really focusing on, and something I've been teaching for a couple of years now, and, you know, on a personal level experiencing for a couple of years now, is that we can't ignore our dark side. We can't ignore our negative feelings. And since, you know, since positive psych came into, re-entered the field of psychology in general, you know, with Seligman and with the work of the lead researchers that started it back in the 1990s and before, is that we're a whole person. We're not only positive emotions, and it's sort of absurd and ridiculous to think that we are only our positive side, and it's unrealistic to say you should only focus on that positive side. You have to acknowledge your negative emotions, and you have to pay attention to them, and they're there for a reason. And everything is a balance, and that includes the way we feel about things. One of the things that Taylor writes about is adventures in his Summer Swell series, and he acknowledges positive psychology in that he acknowledges both the strengths and the weaknesses of the characters that he writes about. And I'm doing the same thing with my Poppin series, and so that's really that's what positive psych is about. It's not all positive emotions. It's a balance of, an equal balance of positive and negative, and acknowledging our strengths and also recognizing our limitations and working on them.
Mm-hmm. I love that, and I love your guys' work in the fiction genre, because I think that that's one of the most overlooked genres with regards to spirituality and all of that as a whole, because our books, regardless of, people's adherence to them, and I don't mean to step on anybody's toes that may listen, but they are works of fiction. They're metaphorical stories, Carl Jung said that I might get this quote wrong, but he said, the stories that we read about in the world, they're like collective dreams. They're dreams that we're kind of sharing, like the world has a collective dream, and they come about in the form of these myths and fairy tales and characters, but they're universal. Like the stories that you and Taylor are working on now, they're universal, and those characters can be interpreted over and over again, as opposed to just a general plain biography of an actual person's life. Like depending on the state or the stage that I'm in today, I can read your work, and see this in a character and apply it to my life. And then I could be in another place, another part of the spectrum, and read your work and then, get a whole new revelation about my own life, because the characters are metaphorical, because they are fictionalized. So I think your work, has a great, I can't find the word, but has a great relevancy to the spirituality genre, which is my background.
Mhm. What do you think? What do you think, Taylor?
Yeah.
I really love the idea of the collective, the collective dream, and the way that a lot of stories just through storytelling and through novels and fiction and just literature throughout history, how everything a lot of stuff repeats itself. Just the ideas behind stories, and the idea of like quests and overcoming adversity. And I mean, that's sort of what life really is about. I mean, it's about taking the good with the bad, and moving forward and understanding that it's not all sunshine and happiness, and sometimes life gets dark, life gets hard. But and I mean, stories and storytelling and books and novels throughout history always reflect that. I mean, you can look back at the Iliad and the Odyssey. I mean, books that were written thousands of years ago, and they reflect exactly the same stuff that literature nowadays does.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I totally agree, man. So my next question to you is, how does this serve you as far as being an outlet? Because I know there are a lot of people who consider themselves to be, and I may get this wrong, right-brained or more left-brained, I guess, analytical. And excuse me if I get the brain halves wrong. But, like there are a lot of people who are analytical who don't have a creative side. And I know, being in school and all that stuff, it's like they kind of try to make you into this image so that you can fit the machine and fit the larger image, and they take the creative aspect away from you. But creativity, to some degree, or to the utmost, in fact, it helps you. It's like it releases you. It allows you to be more of a holistic person. So how does your work help you release? I guess that would be my question. Am I going
first, Karen?
Yeah, no, you go first, Taylor.
All right. Writing for me, especially writing fiction, has always been it's self-reflection. The Summersville series that I've been working on for the last couple of years has a cast of a number, at least two dozen different characters, but they all, in some manner or reflect me in some way, or reflect people that I've known, or people that I currently know, people that I've had experiences with through my life, and it lets me, sort of run the full gamut of understanding how people interact and how just how people relate to the things that happen, whether they're little events or big events in a person's life. It's a way for me of examining how those things have happened, and because I write, because I'm writing this series for young adults and for children, I sort of looked at it initially as a way for, kids that maybe haven't gone through some of the, harder parts of life, or haven't experienced things that I have or that people I know have, that they can almost sort of get their bearings on something that might happen before it ever does, and, look at things through a different set of eyes. Mm-hmm. At least, that's been my experience with writing. It's an outlet for me. It's a way to examine things.
Yeah, and it's like how I know the people that are into like oracle cards and oracle reading. There's something psychological about looking at a metaphor or a symbol. These characters that you're talking about. It's like you use a different part of the brain, and you pull on a different part of who you are, and it's like you can go deeper. You can get a deeper meaning of yourself and of your life by reflecting on metaphor and symbol, because you're not limited to just one interpretation, but you kind of take the brakes off, and all sorts of things come about, when you're looking at symbol. I know people who are great meditators and who are great thinkers. People like Carl Jung, in fact, used symbol and metaphor and fictionalized characters to do inner work on their own self, to kind of figure out where they're at in life, and where they're going and what they're doing, etc. So Karen, to you, I would ask that same question. How does your work in regards to not just positive psych, but in romance writing in general, how does that help you to, I guess, release and have that creative outlet? What does it do for you?
Well, I think it's a really good question, and I don't look at creativity as something that's exclusive to only right-brained people. I think people who are very analytical, doctors, for example, can use that creativity within their own parameters or their own strengths. For example, if someone is a mathematician and they really have a passion for math, then they can celebrate their creativity and problem solving and critical thinking skills. And, I have one friend who I went to high school with, and now I just admire her so much, because she's not only a brilliant surgeon, but she's also a long distance runner, and she's also a yogi. And, I see her on Facebook all the time and see her progress, and I think this is a woman who's using her passion for what she loves, and she's really following through with that. And I think that can be true for anybody. You don't have to be artistically talented in order to be creative.
Right.
I think that there are a lot of people who think, I don't have any artistic talent, and yet they know how to orchestrate a fundraiser and raise thousands or millions of dollars for a really good cause. Rob Greenfield is another fellow that I think we all follow on Facebook, and he biked across the country on a bamboo bike to help raise awareness of food waste in our country, and how to be more resourceful, and how to be more conscious of our environment. And he used his creativity in doing something that people weren't necessarily thinking about doing, and now he's doing it again, and he's going dumpster diving.
That's not very. I saw that.
Yeah, that's not very artistic, but man, is it original. And I think people who are daring to be original are the people who are the most creative. One of the things that, Taylor and I, getting together to write these books, he writes the Summer Swell series, and his fictional characters are animals, and yet you can really connect with each of them. And I write a series called Poppins, where it's about a young lady who knows that she is dying, and she's young, and she knows she doesn't have much time left on the earth, and it's all about the people that she interacts with and each life lesson that she can learn from each of those people that she interacts with. And, I do the same thing with transitions coaching, in that I didn't want to just become a life coach. I really wanted to work with people in transitions, because they have to be creative, they have to be resourceful, they have to think of the whole person all the time. And a lot of times you really have to pull creativity out in order to be able to think about doing something else if you hit a roadblock. And a lot of people, especially in our country right now, we're hitting roadblocks. And like you said, the machine is the vessel, but it's not necessarily the whole. And using that for the greater good, that's a good thing. But sometimes we get bogged down with too much information. And being able to turn that off is pretty creative in today's world, to just go back outside and just simplify life and just try to find a different route to where it was that we wanted to go. So creativity for me is the same thing as spirituality. You have to find the power, and it has to be inside, and it has to be driven by passion and curiosity and a desire to just be a better version of ourselves.
Yeah, that Thomas More said the same thing. One of his quotes was regarding that subject, where he said, spiritual practice isn't just defined as something that we would think of as spiritual. It can be anything. It could be gardening. It could be, like you said, yoga. It could be running. It could be just anything, but just making it a practice. That's the thing. Doing it, making yourself come out of yourself, coming out of the house, getting away from the computer even, and just doing it repeatedly, because it does something for the soul that literal analytical stuff can't really do for that other part of us that we can't see.
Right.
So
I
Taylor,
absolutely agree.
Taylor, my question to you is regarding, before I even ask another question, tell me about one of the pieces of writing that you're working on and some of the characters. Karen hinted at one of the series that you're working on with regards to animals, but tell me a bit more about that one, or about one that you're working on that you're really passionate about right now.
The big series that I've been working on is the Summersville Saga, and I got some other stuff out there. I've got a bunch of short stories I'm working on, and Karen and I have been working on co-authoring a couple of pieces of writing. But the big series I've been working on for a couple of years is the Summersville Saga, and it's an adventure story following a young otter, actually, and like Karen said, the entire cast of characters is made up of different types of animals, and it just follows his journey on the way to following his dream and finding adventure. And the first books are more or less about how he is born into this lifestyle of living next to a river and doing things that otters do, and just sort of being gifted with this mundane life where he's kind of expected to do something, and somewhere in adolescence he decides that that's not what he wants to do. He wants to go out and he wants to be a buccaneer, and he wants to find adventure, and he wants to go on quests. And so he kind of just sets off one day, and over the course of the first book and the second book and the third book, he meets a variety of interesting characters, a lot of whom become friends, some of them don't, and he has adventures. And the core, I would say the core message of the book series is that he always sets out to do what he believes is the right thing, but also he sort of defies convention, but he does so with the aid of his friends. And there's a lot of it's very much metaphor, but some of the core values are friendship and camaraderie, and really just sticking by the people you care about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that, man. Those are all universal archetypes. It's like when you look at spirituality and you look at all of those images, or in Hinduism, you see all those gods and goddesses. They're just archetypes or typologies representing energies in the body or life principles. Like, if we were, like 10,000 years from now, we're talking about the word beauty today, but beauty could be idealized as some mythic goddess, with all types of crazy hair and funky things and arms and all kinds of stuff. A character from your story, even, and people are looking at it who are literal, saying, "Oh my God, these people, they worship that image," but it was an archetype that we were trying to point people to, just as your story. So I love that, man. I love your story. Karen, what about you? What series are you working on now?
Right now I'm actually working on a life coach based a 3-part series, and I just published one up on Amazon. I'm calling it Rewrite, and it's all about my year in transitions. And to me, when a professional goes through a profound life experience, they become more attuned to any client that they're going to have. So I'm really working on a business-based, personal/business life coaching series. And it's all because I went through so many really huge, big stressor transitions all at the same time over the course of a year. And because of that, I came out on the other side being more appreciative of people's life experience in general, and not just here in the United States, but on a global, in a global perspective. And, one of the things that Taylor just said about his is you really find out who your friends are. And one of the big things with positive psych and with transitions is knowing who you can trust, knowing who you can rely on, knowing who you can call at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, I need a cup of soup, or I need someone to talk to, and knowing who is going to be there for you. So having faith in your fellow man or woman, and having people who have your back and you having their back, and that sort of touches on all of it, fiction, nonfiction, psychology, spirituality, is that we have to stay connected to each other, and human beings have to recognize and appreciate and celebrate our differences as well as our commonalities in order to be able to stay unified, instead of always dividing up into, separate little compartments. Or, that's one of my big things, Jesse, is that my personal life is my professional life and vice versa. And I don't see how anybody can disconnect from one part of themselves in order to focus on another part, because you don't actually disconnect. And to me, it's a lot like our emotions. You don't disconnect from your negative emotions in order to focus on your positive ones, because that leads to unrealistic expectations.
Oh, Karen, are you still there?
Yep. Oh, you can't hear me. I have a cold, so my voice is bad. But
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last part. Can you repeat that one more time?
Just that we can't disconnect from our negative emotions in order to focus on our positives, and vice versa. You have to stay a whole person and stay connected.
Oh my God, that is beautiful. Guys, I'm all out of time. We got to do this again. What's your website? How can people get a hold of your work?
Go ahead, Taylor.
Amazon.
Amazon.
All my work.
Powers,
Amazon.com. All my work's under my author name, which is Taylor R. Powers.
We use Facebook a lot to communicate with our friends. Yeah. You can also find us at Dragon Alley at the Stables on Facebook.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, guys, thank you so much. Folks, if you're just listening, tuning in, you got to hear this interview from the beginning. I've been talking with Taylor R. Powers and doctor, psychology, expert, positive psych, or whatever. This is awesome. Karen Henry. I don't even know what to call them. They're a great duo, and I'm excited, with regards to their work, and I love you guys or whatever. I want to do this again. You've been great. And, folks, that's been the interview. You've been listening to Heart and Soul Podcast with Jess Herriott. Please tune in and check out my other archives at www.jess.com, and also on our Blog Talk Radio and iTunes, Heart and Soul Radio. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you. Thank you so much.